All right, everyone. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Look, I am super excited to finally spend some time with a good friend of mine, Jonny Johnson. How are you, dude? Look, I don't know if I can. I don't want to steal your thunder. You've got your intro, you've got your own spiel, but I am quite a fanboy. You're over here at Huntress, kind of as a teammate and coworker with my day job, but I know you've been through plenty of places and doing incredible stuff here and there and all prior. So, super happy to hang out and spend some time with you, Jonny. What are you up to?
Hey, yeah, thanks so much, John. The pleasure's all mine, man. It's a pleasure to work with you and learn from you as well. And things are going great on my end. The weather over here in South Carolina is finally going and smoothing out, so that's nice. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Well, now you're at Huntress and you're doing some incredible stuff with, a lot of our EDR, endpoint detection response capabilities. And I think you got a couple projects, a couple tools kind of on your own end that you've been tinkering with and making some incredible progress with that I'd love to dive into. But can you tell me a little bit about your background, your upbringing? How'd you get into this? Where have you been before? And how did you fall into this work that we do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because, you hear a lot of quote unquote origin stories of people in the industry of playing, I know so many of them that play WoW growing up, and that's what got them into computers and things like that. I'm the complete opposite. I grew up playing Xbox, playing Halo. And actually what happened was I was at my school one day in high school because I tried to join the military, partially colorblind. So I had limited options. And so I was like, man, what should I do with my life? And I remember literally typing into the computer at the high school I was at, cool degrees. And I came across this one called cybersecurity from a college that was 3.5 hours away from me. And they just won the cyber defense club. And I was like, man, this sounds super cool. So I called the professor and I was like, hey, I know how to type on Word. Can I make it? I've never done anything else with computers. And he was like, yeah, you just got to work hard. So that's actually how I got into it. It was I literally was just like, hey, this sounds cool. And I kind of have the mentality of once I start something, I can't stop it. So that was the kind of the origin story. And then progressed through college and kind of got to a point where I needed to do an internship, did an internship at a big accounting firm, did a lot of PAM work, privilege access management. And I wanted to do something more defensive based. And so I actually met a guy who I think you know as well. His name's Andrew Schwartz, funny enough. And this was when he was just starting at Trusted Sec. He was just leaving the company that I was interning at and he was transitioning out. And I hit him up. I was like, hey man, I heard you're the guy to talk to. What should I do? And he was like, I think his exact words to me were, well, actually it's funny. He sent me a PCAP from, I think it's what's it called, Malware Network or something like that. And he was just analyze this for me. And I was like, cool. So I did, send it over to him. And he's like, cool. So now I want you to download this thing called Detection Lab by Chris Long and go to MITRE ATT&CK, pick something, run it, and then play with it. And that's how I got started in detection engineering. And then got very lucky because my first job was at Spectre Ops, where I did detection engineering. And man, I got so lucky. This was 2019. Man, I worked with people like Jared Atkinson, Matt Graber, Roberto Rodriguez, Richie Cyrus, Luke Payne, just all these really intelligent, Will Schroeder, who a lot of people know as Harmjoy, Lee Christensen. I mean, the list goes on. So very fruitful in the sense of just being able to work there and learn from so many people from so many diverse backgrounds. And I started with detection engineering. And I loved it, but I was like, man, I want to know Windows better. And so for some reason, I decided I was going to start reverse engineering this tool that many people know called Sysmon. And I was like, never really done reverse engineering before. And so for some reason, I thought reverse engineering that would be a good starter. And, huge shout out to Matt Graber. He helped me so much. But that's, for those who don't know me, I'm really big into Windows internals and telemetry mechanisms and telemetry identification. That's where it started, was detection engineering. I was like, I need to understand the OS better. And I just started reverse engineering the Sysmon EDR. And that kind of got me down this path, and then I just kind of progressed on that at this.
Well, hey, I'm happy to say, like, I was a fanboy, at least seeing you across the internet airwaves over on the Twitterverse. I always thought, man, Jonny Johnson looks like a genius. That guy's a wizard. He's running with these hard hitters. He's doing incredible stuff. So now that you joined the party here with us, I am grateful and love seeing all the sweet stuff that you're up to. Now, is it 2 projects, maybe 3, I don't know, 4, or whatever you're juggling? But help me understand. I know the telemetry end of it, we've got ETW Inspector, is that right? And then sort of your own, like, not to say homegrown, not to say home cooked, but like EDR light capability driver, kernel driver special sake with Jonmon. Is that right?
Yep. That's correct. Yeah. So I juggle, and sorry, by the way, if you see the 2 dogs walking back and forth, and they like to go look at the birds outside. So that's why you kind of see all the movement. But so I have 2 projects that I really try to consistently develop over time. And I always have like another 3rd or 4th kind of juggling. But the main ones is Jonmon. Jonmon is like you mentioned, it's a homegrown EDR light tool. And essentially how that came about was, I got tired of reverse engineering EDR sensors and kind of being beholden of whatever tool I was using. And I was like, in order for me to truly understand telemetry, I have to play with these mechanisms with my own hands. And I also needed to learn how to program better. And per usual with me, I bite more than I can chew. And so I took a big chunk there and decided to learn like C++ by like developing a driver and user mode component for Jonmon. So Jonmon has 2 versions. You have version 1 that's still publicly available. It's kind of hidden, but you can go find it. And that was like the first iteration. Now it was terrible. It was pretty bad. Like I was doing multi-threading in the kernel. You don't want to do things like that. Like that is not ideal. So the second version is way more stable. It's better overall, collects more. It's just better. And then the other project that you mentioned was ETW Inspector. And that's also, I'm about to actually release, if I can get everything figured out this week, hopefully release this week, if not next. I'm in like a bit of a crux, and I'll show you guys that whenever here in a little bit when I showcase it. But ETW Inspector, the goal with that, for those who don't know, there's like a super powerful research tool out there that I highly recommend anybody use. It's called NT Object Manager by James Forshaw. And you can do anything with this tool. You drop it, it's PowerShell, you can leverage PowerShell, you can like look into objects like processes, threads, tokens, etc. It's amazing. It's like probably one of the main tools I've ever used. I wanted to create my own NT Object Manager version, but for ETW. And so that's what ETW Inspector's dream is to be. Now, there was a version 1 that came out, and that was like in C++, and it was relatively limited. I mean, you could like enumerate providers. You could enumerate like providers and pass that in and get a trace session, things like that. But this new one, 2.0, is written in C#, and it is way more powerful. And I'll showcase some of that today. But the whole point of that is to be able to inspect various ETW components and then play with them by yourself.
Well, I made the mistake of throwing around our acronym and then realizing, wait a second. In case anyone's not too familiar, ETW is that event tracing for Windows, sort of like, even behind the scenes core capability for logging audit info, details, any insight from any kind of source. But you could do a heck of a lot of a better job explaining than I can. If you're up for it, should we dive right into that show and tell? I know I was bantering for too long, but let's get the fireworks going.
We'll start with Jonmon. I think that will be the easiest one to kind of start with here. So Jonmon, if you go to like let's say you just like go online and go to Jonmon, it's on GitHub, and you see on the main branch, this is 2.0. If you were to go to like version like this would be the first one. And let's just dive into this to look how that is to start. And
if you can control scroll again, I'd love to amp it up. Thank you.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. So yeah, here is a good example of like right here. I'm allocating like some memory here in the kernel, and ideally you don't want to do that. And because it could take a lot of resources, you kind of like fear not freeing the memory properly, which causes leaks. And so that's not ideal. And so some of that you can't really get past, but some of it you really want to stay away from. So anyways, this is version 1 if people want to check this out. You really should just download it and just go from there. But you see 2.0 here. And inside of here, there is a nice little wiki to walk through like installation. A couple of things to kind of keep in mind when you're dealing with JonMon is, it's not signed. And so you have to open up a VM. Don't put this on production machines. And then you need to turn on test signing and set. You could put debug on. You don't have to put debug on. This is just nice in certain situations if you want to debug it or whatever it is, but you don't have to do this. And then it's as simple as once it's test signing is turned on, you then go into the directory, do -I. I'll show you that here in a moment, and that is the installation. But there, you'll see two different services. You'll see JonMon and JonMon DRV, and then uninstalling it is easy as -U. So it's super easy there. And then if we go inside of here, go up a little bit, here is a nice little, let's see if we can zoom in. Here's a nice diagram of how JonMon's working. So before I dive into it a little bit, you'll see the JonMon service is what anybody will really, leverage. And then what happens is once this starts, this will then create a service for the driver. And the driver is a driver mini filter, and it will consume events via kernel callback. And instead of processing all the events in the driver, like, version 1 did, it'll actually just grab the data that it needs and then ship it down to the user mode component or JonMon service via trace logging, ETW, or event tracing for Windows. And a little backstory on ETW for those that don't know, there's 4 different types of providers. There's manifest, MOF, trace logging, and WPP. And there's benefits to using each or the other. Trace logging is just nice because the APIs are super easy to deal with and it's super quick. So it's super nice. JonMon service also allows someone to process a JSON config. If you go look at like Sysmon, it's an XML config, and that's fine. Nothing against that. I hate XML. I also hate parsing XML. So JSON just made sense to me. And so that gets sent down to the driver via device IO control, which allows it to then like parse the config, etc. So that's how that is done. And then after that, it then ships the events after all the processing is done. It pulls information about like usernames, login IDs, all the above. And then it shipped that down to the its own provider, the JonMon provider. So there's 2 different providers. But anyways, the manifest one, and then once that's done, it will be present in Event Viewer. So that's how that's done, and you'll be able to see this via JonMon operational. So let's just show it live. So like I mentioned, actually, let me show you all the config first. This might be quite nice to see. So you can turn on and turn off various different events. This was something that wasn't around in version 1. And it was kind of just collecting everything in itself, which was kind of annoying. And it kind of just was a lot of logging all at once.
I'm so glad you got JSON too. Clean and easy.
Oh man, it was so nice. And it's nice because when I update it, because like as JonMon progresses, there will be updates. Like originally 2.0 didn't have this in it. I was actually talking to a buddy of mine, Olaf Hartong, and he mentioned that this would be nice to do because you don't want to collect maybe all of these, but you might want to collect some of these. And I'm actually working on an update right now where with image loads, it'll end up actually being something like, this is really bad, like casing here, but we'll just, play with it. Where you have like, and then, so you'll be able to specify if you want user mode DLLs or driver loads, because this all comes from the same callback. So you'll be able to specify that here coming up soon as well, which is nice. So working on that, that's almost done. Pretty easy fix there, but I'm getting like signatures in there as well, so that's why it's taking so long. So anyways, excuse me. So let's just run this puppy and see what happens. So it's as easy doing -I, and you'll see all this output. If you see this here working and this working, then you're in the clear. Everything's going to work as you would hope it would. And then you can just open up Event Viewer, and you can instead of application service logs, the Event Viewer is super slow, so it takes a second. There we go. So you go inside of here and you'll see all these events, right? And like process access is a lot, so this is nice because you can like, oops, have to do a minus there. Fat finger that. And then you have like image loads. But anyways, here's an example of how the data looks, right? And so this is super nice. Like this might be a reason why some people don't want user mode DLLs right here. And so you have a bunch of different data in here, like set values, etc. And so, yeah, this is super nice to see. I've used this a lot for a couple of different reasons. One, I've used it in situations where I want to track like malware. So I've dropped JonMon on a machine, and because it's like not well known, I will run malware against it and I'll collect data that way. And it's nice because this is an EVTX. So like I turn off network completely. I then like export the EVTX, and then I have like all of this really cool data. And I can like dive through it and see what the malware is doing. And like we see from the config, I mean, you can see a lot of good information, file events, process handle, creation, duplication, kind of the works here. And so I'm not really beholden to if the malware is looking for, you know, I don't know, CrowdStrike, MDE, whoever it may be. I can just look for it myself. Another really cool thing that I use JonMon for is like in here, what's a good example of this is, EDR silencer. Was this the blog? I did a blog at Huntress talking about silencing EDR silencers. That's what it is. So inside of here, this was like a talk I gave at like Black Hat talking about like common things being done with EDRs. And one of them is like firewall rules, like Windows filtering platform firewall rules, etc. And what you'll find down here is if you scroll down, and it will allow me to zoom in and not look ugly.
Yeah, might need to make the cookie warnings go away is all. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. And then if we do... Oh, man, it really put me all the way at the top here. Here we go. Okay, so here we go. If we look at this here, what you'll notice is like examples of this being ran. And then if we go down here, right here, immediate removal. This diagram was actually diagrammed by leveraging JonMon. So I was like, well, how can I like do this and block this and stop this from happening in an efficient manner? And so I just leveraged JonMon to do it. So there's an update to JonMon coming that will eventually like, it's like in a separate branch outside of like the drivers image loads, but it'll eventually allow you to do exactly what this image down here is showing you. And that is where it will do immediate removal of like a firewall rule against JonMon. And so that is super cool as well. And that's also what I use JonMon for. And so it's nice because you can test things when new components or mechanisms seem like they're like being exposed on the OS. You can see how valuable they really are. And then you can play with those. And what's nice too is there's multiple ways to obtain telemetry. And let's say a kernel callback isn't the only way. ETW is not the only way. You might have like the Windows notification framework, the NFF. And that might be another way to obtain information or collect telemetry. So like there's all these different ways to do that. And that's what I really leverage, JonMon for and etc. So yeah, what you'll see here is right here, it says added it. And then right here, you'll see that it the filter was deleted because it found a filter with JonMon in it. And then so it removed it. So I'm cleaning this up and then shipping that in JonMon as well. So that's JonMon. And I can show ETW Inspector. But John, did you have anything you wanted to ask about that before I share a little bit of
sort of, kind of, but I would reiterate, man, it's just so cool to be able to see the flood of info that you have at your disposal. Because I don't know if we either just get pigeonholed for, just what we see in flat cookie cutter Windows event logs, or, hey, process monitor, or and it auto runs, just stuff that we tend to know when we think of triage, when we think of forensics, when we think of detection engineering, all that we could do. But there is just so many other sources. Is that right? And like,
Yeah.
just the fact that you get the visibility for that, the fact that you can play with it, the fact that you can make it your own, I just think it's incredible for playing and learning what could be new detection capabilities and just further understanding of, malware, of course, threats, or just, I don't know, other evasion techniques, other just general research that could be done even in the offensive end. It's just so stinking cool. And I've gotten pie in the sky before thinking like, oh man, if I build my cool EDR, it's got to do all those function hooking. It's got to be able to manipulate, make illusions, masquerade, and cool stuff. But I'm like, damn it, I need a kernel driver. And I was thinking, falling down the rabbit hole, do I need like mini filter? Do I figure out that end of it? So can I ask you, even maybe from the developer point of view, and your advice or words of wisdom for a student or another individual, someone passionate about this thing, tuning in and listening, if they wanted to do this, if they wanted their own John Mod or they write their own kernel driver, what are the heartaches? What are the stumbling blocks? What are the rocks that get in the way? Or what's super valuable? What's helpful? What's the gist and advice?
I would say, a couple things. One, understanding the OS is key. So whenever you go to start to collect telemetry, you need to understand what the various mechanisms are that you have at your disposal, right? I think, like, for example, like if I would tell somebody today, it's like, hey, I want to create my own like homegrown sensor, I would say, great, go figure out what you can do solely through ETW. And I think people will be very surprised that like you really don't need a driver all the time. There's a benefit to having a driver, for various like anti-tampering capabilities, things like that, or collecting from, like I leverage my driver to change my process to a PPL because I'm not doing it like the legit way. I would need everything to be signed and do everything like that. I'm not doing that. So there are benefits to having a driver. So I'm not like saying drivers are, you shouldn't do it. But, really try to stretch out the mechanism and see what's really possible. And if you want to build your own, that's fine, but try to do it differently than everybody else has. That's a big thing. The second thing I would say is efficiency. I think I spent more time. The JonMod 2.0 kind of remake was made because JonMod wasn't efficient, the first version. And all that time that I used to kind of redo it all could have been used to put more things into it. And so it's because I really didn't understand programming well and like programming on the OS well and a bunch of other components. So don't lose sight of that because, as more you bring in, the more resources it's going to take. And so you kind of have to be cognizant of that. And then I would say, lastly, get really good at debugging. I hate to say it, but that is like debugging skills. I have a buddy, John, you know him, Connor McGar. That dude is a debugging wizard. I mean, he is crazy with it, man. You put him on WinDebug and that man just goes. And like, it's just a skill that I think like is so often overlooked, man. It's like, so many blue screens I caused with JonMod and so many I had to like kernel debug. And I spent hours and hours, and you just build those skills over time. That's great. But yeah, it just caused a lot of heartache. So those are the three things that I would really say.
That was what I was gonna pick on for just a second. Cause like there's no way around it. If you have a teeny tiny hiccup or mistake, it's a blue screen and you restart and you redo it all over again. It's not like a Python script. You hit up arrow and enter and now you can re-see candlelight debugging. Like, no, you got to hook up everything that you can for diagnosis and troubleshooting. And it's like a 5-minute trip to test something, right?
Oh, every time. And what's terrible is, if you blue screen the box, let's say, because of a code flow, and you don't grab the memory dump or you don't know what the code flow was, there's been times where I didn't hit that code flow again for hours. So JonMod would just run. And I'm like,
where's the bug?
What's happening here? And then I couldn't get it to happen. And then finally it would break. And I'm like, oh. So that's the waiting game too. So kernel debugging is a pain. And like you said, it's not like, user mode debugging where you can just like debug it, set a breakpoint and run and go. it's a little more, intuitive. So it was a pain.
Well, very cool. ATW inspector. That again, you're saying, hey man, this is like the source of truth. This is where you've got the kitchen sink. If you just listen in, if you tap into it and can consume or subscribe to a lot of that stuff. Can you show me any of the sweet stuff for ATW inspector?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me share my screen again. Alrighty, you should be able to see this.
I am at the Huntress blog now, but yep. Okay, cool.
Okay, great. So ETW inspector. So I'll walk you all through like the GitHub. Now this 2.0 is not released yet. This is just like the initial version, and you see is released 11 months ago. So it's been in a rewrite. Actually just like I started to rewrite it, put it down, finished John Mod. They're like two projects that kind of juggle at the same time and whatever I'm feeling. And I lose motivation to work on ETW inspector sometimes, to be honest, because the first one was really easy to get out because I mean, just look at this. This is just like beautiful C++ code here. I mean, I'm writing ETW inspector 2.0 in C#, and I hate C#. I mean, I know a lot of people like it. I do not. And so sometimes I'm like, I'm annoyed with this. I'm going to go write some cool code. So anyways, that's the reason why it hasn't gotten as much love. But 1.0, you can see very basic. You could enumerate and capture different providers, get extended data, etc. So it was nice. Worked really well for what I was using it for. And the reason why I built this, okay, so let me just backstory. I wanted to build something because I was using like multiple tools for enumeration and capturing of ETW events when I was doing, for my job and for research, I do a lot of like telemetry identification. What telemetry can we expose to see X thing? And there's a process, there's a research process with that, there's validation process with that. And I got tired of using like 5 to 10 tools. I was using things like ETW Explorer by Pavel, which is great, mind you. I was using Logman. And I was like, okay, I need something to build everything into one thing. So that's why I kind of wanted to build this. And so you'll see that, this accomplished and did a lot, did some cool stuff for like enumeration. However, there was still some to be desired, at least by me. So introducing ETW Inspector 2.0. So this is really nice because it's just a PowerShell module now. So you can just like import module.
Are you good to zoom in to switch?
Let me
thank you. Sorry, I'm a crazy person.
No,
grandma glasses and all.
And it'll be easier to import than this. And like once it's released, this is just like, hey, this is my C# runner, and I'm just going to drop it, import it, and go. And the cool thing though is, let me just show this off because I actually built this in last night. So if you do git command against it, let's do module and ETW inspector. You'll see that there is 5 commandlets right now. This is probably the most powerful, the get ETW providers. Get ETW trace sessions is what I am working on currently. I'll show you here in a moment what I'm trying to get working with it. Once this is done, this will be done, and I think it'll be super powerful. But you can pull ETW providers. There's, historically, there has only been 2 different providers that you could enumerate via various tools, and that's Manifest and Moth. They're considered registered providers because once they're registered, they're kind of stored in the registry and they're kind of like available, and so they're easy to query. Now, Matt Graber a long time ago created a PowerShell script that basically parsed a file and it would allow you to see if it's a trace logging provider. Because that's what's different about trace logging is it's embedded within a PE. And so you don't really, it's not registered in the registry or anything like that. You have to go parse the PE to get it. So this will actually parse the PE and grab trace logging providers for you, along with Manifest and Moth. So that's what's really cool. Providers and trace sessions, many people don't know this, they have security descriptors. So this will allow you to pull the security descriptor, and I'll show you that here in a moment. Here soon, be able to pull ETW trace sessions. I'll show you, you can technically do it now, but it's not like the data that I want, so it's not finished. It's not like ready. And then you can start and stop various ETW captures, which is super nice. Like if you're like, hey, I found this provider I want to play with, I'm going to go start it and see what data I get from it, and then you're done. So it's super nice that way. So let me kind of like just dive into this a little bit. This will come with like what they consider like the full help commands. So for example, if I do like KTW providers, you can do this. This is a nice PowerShell ism, which is nice. But it'll allow you to actually like parse out different examples that you can do. So if someone's curious how to use the commandlet, super easy. And then you can kind of run from there. So if we look here, a really good example of this is like you could run it via just like get ETW providers, and then if they'll go, it'll kind of take a second because there's a lot. This is pulling every manifest in MOF by default. So it'll take a second.
And the manifest and MOFs are how like they're defined. Is that right?
Yeah. So manifest is just like it's a registered provider that is stored by an XML like schema backend. That's like the newest type of provider. MOF is like WMI based, WMI class based. So that is what they consider a classic provider. So I was an older type of provider. So they've kind of migrated from like using MOF to more manifest. And then like you have WPP, which was like, it's still used today. If you open up like a PE from Windows, you'll see like WPP tracing inside of it because it's used for like debugging and things like that. And trace logging also is kind of historically used for like debugging, but it's kind of like I use it in JonMon. A lot of EDRs kind of use it now to like communicate between their binaries and things like that. So it's a nice option as well. So those are kind of the breakdown of the 4 different ones. So if you look here, you'll see that there are 2 different columns. There's a register and there's trace logging providers. That's because the schema, when I parse it, has to be a little different. So you'll see this, and this is all like the really juicy information. This is every MOF and manifest based provider on the machine. And let's just say I want to do like, I don't know, let's pull like the 200th one. Okay. And this is, well, we don't do a MOF one. We want to do something cooler. Let's do like, I don't know. I know there's 1,000 on here, so we'll pull this one. Great. So this is get Windows help. Awesome. If I do like event metadata. Cool. So this is the events that are now stored within this manifest ETW provider, which is super nice. I can then like parse this out and see it's like, hey, this is a provider that I want to use, or maybe it's a provider that might have information I care about. What events within it might be useful. Another really good example of this is like, say I want to do, I don't know, I think I have an example up here. I could just, a good example of this, like say you want to look for, and this is something that other tools don't do currently. I want to look for a property string within a provider that has to do with a TGT, a ticket granting ticket. Now, I could just be like some researcher, and I don't really know ETW that well. I don't know how to enumerate very well. I don't really know what provider I'm looking for. I just know that I want to look for any provider that has a TGT property inside of it. So you can enumerate that now, which is super nice. This very much quickens the process of telemetry identification, which is super nice. So once this is done, I'll kind of show off.
I like that a lot. It's a giant grep. It's Control F
100%.
for everything that could maybe have something about the breadcrumb I'm looking for. That's awesome.
Exactly. So now you see like, this is a cool provider. I like Windows AAD. Great. The resource path. This is like where the, like, it's the event schema, all that other stuff, information about it is stored. This is really cool, which that's obvious because of obviously the 4769s in there. You have all this really cool information. Here's like the Kerberos one. You're like, oh, interesting. There's this Kerberos DLL. Okay, so let's just do something on the fly here. Let's do Kerberos ETW equal get ETW providers. Let's do provider type this time, and let's do trace logging. And I want to pass in this path. Okay. so it has a trace logging provider inside of it. Oh, interesting. There's 3 different trace logging providers within the Kerberos.dll. Okay, so now let's just kind of look.
You can just keep drilling down. This is cool.
You could keep drilling down, and that's the whole point, right? Actually, if you wanted to, you could do like this is actually going to be a cool little thing. If I do get providers and I do provider type, and this is what's kind of nice too is when you do this, you can do multiple. So I built that in, which I'm pretty proud of. And let's say I'm looking for something called Johnmon maybe, or just John in there, and I need to supply a file path because I got to parse the information, the PE. Johnmon, and let's do like Johnmon. This Riverside thing.
Sorry.
Just push over here. No, you're here. So the driver. Okay, so let's just see if there's anything in here. So it's taking a second. Oh, so there's a registered provider and trace logging one. Oh, so this is how Johnmon's producing all of its events to the Windows event log. Very nice. Now let's do the same thing, but let's do so what's all this? So this tells me if I were to enumerate. Now, I'm not going to say which one's out there, but there are other EDRs that work like this in this world. And so let's say you found something like this. What this reads to me is if I'm pulling this from a driver, this must be how I know for a fact for me, for Jonny, this is how I'm packaging my events and shipping them down to the user mode agent. And so this would help me identify what events they're getting from the kernel versus what events they're getting from user mode. And so there's a lot of information in here, which is nice to know, I will just say. So that's what's nice. You have that flexibility in there. And so that's another thing that's nice about ETW Inspector. And then you can do different things as well. Another cool enumeration trick I'll show. Let's do, maybe some people here have heard of the threat intelligence ETW provider, but let's say they haven't. Providers, and let's do a search again. Property. And let's do read VM. But I'm going to change the search string type to a keyword just because there's multiple you can do. You can do search through full string search. So that's the way it's going to look through descriptions, properties, and the keywords. And then you can just do keyword search, which is just going to be the keywords. So if I do this, and it'll take a second. Oh. So then what's nice is, I'll show this off too. Is I now have this threat intelligence provider. If I want to go and like dive into the event metadata like I've already shown, or the keywords, whatever it is, fine, I can do that. However, what's also very cool is I can then pull the event descriptor, or not even descriptor, the security descriptor, which then would allow me to know like who has access to the provider, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what's really nice. And this is all pulled for people as well. So like, say that you can do this with trace sessions as well, by the way. And that's what I'm currently baking in. I'll show you this here in a second. But let's say you see a trace session. Let's say you're an offensive user. You see a trace session. Jonny would be a great example of this, actually. Because I know for a fact I don't change the security descriptor whatsoever. Let's do security. Let's say you're an offensive user and you're like looking at trace sessions. Okay, let's theoretically say this is a trace session because there is a trace session for a Jonmon. But anyways, let's say this is it. And you see that you have access to it. Well, nothing's stopping you from like playing with the trace session, right? Assuming you have access. So, I mean, the world's kind of your oyster there. And so that's what's nice about pulling the security descriptor. So, yeah. So the last thing I'll show, and then I'll toss it back over to you, John, is you can pull trace sessions this way. However, it's not like very cool. Like that's just like meh. What I want to do is this. Let's say I have let's just do Jonmon. Doesn't really matter. Jonmon, one of the things I pull is RPC data. Okay. I want to be able in the threat intelligence ETW provider. One thing that will be inside of this is essentially all of this information. And what this is all information I can pull like right now. And that like I did pull in that screen that I showed you a second ago. It's this that's hard to get. And that is every enabled provider under the trace session. Now, I think I figured out how to do it. It's just not pretty. So that's currently what's under development right now. It's not going to be very easy to pull, but at least, that I have found. But anyways, once this is all in there,
it's coming together slowly but surely.
It'll be. That's right. So yeah.
Cool. But you're still chipping away, right? This is, I don't know, is it the passion project, labor of love, still something to experiment with?
Yeah, I think what happens to me oftentimes with these projects, and this is why I get very, very lucky with like Jonmon and like ETW Inspector, is because I'm dealing with such lower level components, I'll often find something I didn't know about. And that currently happened with me. I have like another ETW project that I'm chipping away on. Not a tool, but I found some really cool research that I haven't seen documented. And so I found that doing ETW Inspector. So I then put ETW Inspector on the back burner, and then I kind of came back to it. So yeah, it's a passion love project, but it's also nice because like I use it on a daily basis. And so then I'm like, oh, I could do this with it, and this would make my life even more easy. And Jonmon is one of those two where it's like, it's nice because we live in a world of Twitter where everybody will drop like a new like offensive thing that's like, you can't find me, and I'm like, well, bet, and then I'll just like put it in Jonmon or see if I can do it in Jonmon, and I'll be just like,
got it.
I can do this. Yeah.
I think again, it's just such a great personal project because like, hey, it's your centralized thing to keep adding that capabilities as you learn about them, as you discover them, as you see more and more. So it's just cool. Again, outside looking in, I think it's just such a sweet, cool project. And would you recommend this sort of thing to anyone else, to everyone else, offense or defense? Am I barking up the wrong tree here? What do you think?
No, absolutely. I think not only from, I'll say this, like telemetry, I think is so often overlooked, and I think it's often oversimplified. And it's, we kind of forget this chain of how things work. Offensive people change tradecrafts based off the telemetry that's exposed and then the telemetry that's collected. Those are two different things. What's exposed versus what is collected. And detection engineers are beholden of whatever data they have. So if they're creating detections on data and the organization is supposed to trust the detection engineer, then the detection engineer needs to trust the data. And so the question then comes like, can you do that? And where are you pulling the data so you can trust it? So I think everyone should be looking at these things. I think it's, if anything, if you're just like a nerd that just wants to know the OS, this is just another thing to dive into. There's a lot of nuance with it, and a lot of the stuff isn't documented super duper well. And so there's a lot of like treasures to find, and you'll find like a lot of my blogs, for example, or I want to say over 50% of them are all like telemetry identification based. And if it's OS internals based, it's because I came across it because I was looking at telemetry. So, I mean, I'm probably a weirdo because I have this deep love for like telemetry identification the way I do. It's just my thing. But I think everybody should be doing that. So yeah.
No, I think I'm right there with you. Again, it's just the fact you can discover, the fact you can play with it, the fact that it's for research and for fun. But I'm glad we got in the disclaimers and the stipulations like, hey, don't run this in production. Like, this is not a products EDR to slap on all your endpoints, but it is something that, hey, us nerds and geeks can learn from and use to learn even more. So that's super cool.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much, Jonny. You think there's anything more to squeeze in, or hey, was that the show?
I think that's about it. That's all I have. I'd be more than happy to come back and show a couple other tools that I have in the back burner in the future when it comes to telemetry identification. But I think for today, I think that's
well, I'd love to get the feedback. I don't know if there's any sweet comments or anyone sharing their input, but maybe we get to, if you're willing to share a little bit of your dev process, a little bit of, what does this thing look like when you're adding in new features, a new capability, that would be very, very cool. Because
I could always do that. And I could also intentionally put a bug in like the driver and then debug it in WinDebug. That would be a cool but hard one.
Well, where else can folks I don't know, track you down, see what you're up to? A little call to action. How can anyone else see what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Twitter, JSecurity101. I know that's a lame name. I created it in college. I'm too far gone now, so I can't really change it. I'm on LinkedIn. Jonathan Johnson is my full name, so you'll see me there. And I'm more than happy to hear people's thoughts, comments, feedback. If there's anything, if you played with these tools and like you're like, hey, I want to see this, or even if you haven't, like, what could you possibly do this? Let me know. And it could be one of those things too where could do another thing with John where it's like, hey, someone asked if I could do this. Let's just try it and see what happens with it.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Jonny. Seriously, this has been awesome. Hey, great to be working with you day in and day out. And it's a wizard, man. You're doing genius, cool stuff. Thank you for helping spread the knowledge and share the right mission. So until next time, everyone, take care.